Yes. Hold on.
Welcome. How are you?
Good and yourself?
Good. It's good to see you. We
All
spoke
right, give me
earlier.
1 second.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
All right. All
so
right.
we spoke earlier. So let me do my formal intro, and then we'll jump right into our daily artist talk with the Museum of Graffiti. First off, I want to welcome everyone to the Museum of Graffiti's Daily Art Talk, where we get to connect with artists in our community who are shaping this art movement we know as graffiti writing or writing. And today I have the luxury and the pleasure to have Miss Reds from Miami-Dade County. My name is Carlos Mayer. I'm the curator at the Museum of Graffiti, which is in Wynwood, Miami, and was opened in December, was launched in December by Alan Kett and Allison Frieden. And we are an institution that celebrates this art movement and the artists who have created it, past and present. So today we're here with the one and only Miss Red. So if you don't know who she is, I would highly recommend that you go to her Instagram. And a little background before we start, Reds. You you were born and raised in the county of Miami-Dade, but have lived in Los Angeles, Sacramento, and Boston. And you
Yeah.
started writing in 2007. And you showed an interest in graffiti since you were 9. Well, that's very young. And you consider your style, when piecing, curvy, big, and tall and chunky. When you're doing stompers.
Yeah.
I've been writing for a long time, and that's a new term for me in the later years. But more than that, you do fantastic illustrations
Thank
and
you.
commercial style art. And we want to dig into your story very quickly because we have a limited time of an hour with our audience. And I want to encourage our audience to think about questions towards the end of our interview. And so I will, remind you guys to do so. And so, Red, so going right into this conversation, as I look at these two slides to begin with, you are very, very prolific. One as a bomber, but also as a style writer. And so I want to jump into the beginning. And so these are very modest works. So tell us about that 9-year-old girl.
Well, when I was 9, basically, I've always been into art, and graffiti always called my attention because just seeing it out in the streets, just seeing the letters and all that, just really grabbed my attention. And I really wanted to go ahead and just even you know, get into it. I didn't know the extent, obviously, being a little kid, and just doing it on my own and copying, like, even my cousin's style. That's what really got me started.
What were they writing? Who were they down with a big crew?
They weren't. I don't even think they were a writer. It was just more like a hand style than anything what caught my attention. And then he just gave me like an alphabet to go off of. But after that, I was given the book that I was given the book Subway Art. And what really caught my attention on that was a piece from Poem. And I went ahead and copied the piece itself. And, from there, it's kind of like I just studied those letters on my own. And I would just paint book bags and do everybody's name throughout middle school, high school, and all that. So it was just basically me being self-taught, if anything. And just from there, it's where, I did have forwarding over, to 2007, seeing the piece that's up, posted up top. That's actually the first piece I ever did. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just pushed to go ahead and just get up on walls, which I was very nervous to even do. And so I went ahead and went to Home Depot, bought Rustos, and just went ahead and started painting, And I didn't even know how to even do 3D. Like if you see up top, like my 3D is just going everywhere.
So, but the name Red, why the name Red? And was that the only name you had?
Yeah, it's actually been the only name I have painted, or the only name that I wrote. It actually started in high school. I used to have red hair, and then one day during PE, I had my red hair, a red ribbon, red shoes, red shorts, a red drawstring backpack, and one of my friends. Well, actually, I had just finished running the mile, so my cheeks get like super, super red when I'm active. So he starts laughing at me and calling me a red crayon.
Hmm.
And we just went ahead and every single day he used to just yell at me like red crayon, red crayon. And then just for short, people started calling me Red. And I'm like, you know what? I can stick to this. Like, I really like this.
What did your
And
parent thinks of this?
oh,
Did your parents say, well, all of a sudden your given name is no longer your given name. You're Reds all of a sudden.
um, at first, like when, they started seeing, that that's just what everybody calls me. Like nobody really calls me by my first name. They couldn't understand because they're like, oh, why is everybody calling you Red? Like nobody even calls you by your first name. And they knew like I was into graffiti. It was just later on, that they started like, once I started getting arrested and then having to bail me out, um, that's when they were started getting too pissed off, with the whole graffiti thing.
Were you getting in trouble? Were you getting arrested at all?
Yeah, actually, right when I started, like in the first few months, like I said, I didn't even know what I was doing. Like I knew me writing on people's like property, what obviously something that does not belong to me was wrong, but I didn't know to what extent. And until I finally get arrested, like the first time, a few months after I started, um, they, having to call my parents to come and bail me out. I think I was like 19, and they were so fed up with it. Like they're just like, this is it's not even worth it. Like there's, after them having to pay like the bail and all that, like they just could not
What
understand.
what kind of friends were you keeping?
Um, at that time, like I wasn't really like hanging out with like writers or anything. Like I said, I didn't know what I was doing at all. Um, but I was like kicking it with like two other guys that kind of wrote for that time, which are the ones that actually like made like pushed me to start. But after that first arrest, like they actually didn't even keep going, and
Was it just walls that you were writing, or did you start hitting freights at all?
I didn't. Well, I did hit one freight, and that was it. Like I was not into freights at all whatsoever. Um, I didn't like them because my thing was is that even like in the earlier years of when I started painting, like I'm so like meticulous, and I like it has to be super super clean for me. For me to be satisfied with what I do. So seeing that like on freights with all those like ridges and all that, I could not get clean, like super, super clean as I wanted to. And I would just frustrate myself.
Right. And you know what? I want to move ahead into that thought because as we're looking at some of your pieces, obviously you take a real strong interest in style writing and painting. And you, like I said, like you just said, the meticulousness of design and line work is something that you were striving for. What was influencing that? What were you looking at? What writers were you looking at? And crews were, as you started getting more and more into the culture. Um, of course, we always want to write with the better writers. Who were you starting to associate with and get aspire to get to the point where you want to aspire to this level?
In the beginning, when I first started writing, like the people that I was like seeing up was like the MSGs, like Seven Up, the Inkheads, and all that. And when I first started writing, like I was looking up to like the MSGs, like like Chrome and all that. Which I did get into MSG for a little bit, and I was super excited about all that, being fairly new, and then, them actually like taking me in. But, I received like a lot of hate, And that's been since I first started writing. You know, it's always been a super challenge. So I always kind of like kept my distance. I didn't want anyone to help me. Basically, I wanted to figure this out on my own. But like another crew that I looked up to, you know, as well was FDC. Because when I first started writing, I would go to this one spot that was Catalyst, where I would be able to practice my piecing. And they would actually like Junk, another writer, Tico, is another one that he actually, I've looked up to since I first started writing. He's one of the people that actually was like one of the very, very few that I took advice from. And actually, and I'm still lucky to be able to call him a friend till today,
Red,
and crew member.
So when you think about those formative years and the challenges, because there are several challenges that usually come with writers, right? Better writers, rival writers. In your case, being a woman, being around all these men, because this is a predominantly male-dominated culture, less so now. How did that feel? Were you protected, or did you feel intimidated? Did you have to prove yourself?
I did have to prove myself, basically, and that's how I think that's how it is, because like I said, starting off, like I did get a lot of hate and a lot of people questioning, like, oh, will you even be here, a few years from now and all that. And, it was cool. Like I set off to like, basically like, you know what, my work is going to speak for itself. And, now even some of those people that hated on me back then, actually give me my props today.
So is the hate, for instance, were there female writers at that time, or was it just the guys?
No, it was actually the guys. It was the guys, and which is fine. It's cool. You get me? Like I look back at it, and I'm actually thankful that that's what I went through. Because
so I somehow a burning question just landed on my head. Must have been some other writer asking this. Did you have any beef with a writer, like with beef with like a fist fight with a writer? I mean, this is very common in our culture. You have to prove yourself not just on the wall, but also physically. Did you have to do that as well?
Yeah, a few times. I'm very mouthy.
You don't have to name names, by the way.
I'm very mouthy, and I'm that type of person that it's like I will call you out if there's an issue, if there's a problem. And even as, I've had my run-ins with girls and guys, where I've had to fight guys as well. It hasn't only been girls, but that's also on me as well, because I'm the first one that I don't like something you said, I'm going to fucking punch you in the face.
There you go. So on that note, I just want to very quickly welcome everybody to the Museum of Graffiti Daily Artist Talk with Reds today, featuring Reds from Miami. And so, Reds, I want to turn around, and I absolutely, I admire your style and your skill. This particular image, I head over heels about for several reasons, because the style is amazing, the painting is amazing, the color choices, the balance, the structure, the power in this, the scale, and that little sign in front of it, danger, 440 volts.
Oh, couldn't hear you. It cut off.
That danger sign. Tell me about your headspace when you go into doing these big productions, these kinds of productions. Are you there to burn? Do you consciously think I'm there to burn?
Well, I always try. I'm always, trying to be better than my last piece. As far as like, there's a lot of times that, I'll freestyle. Very, very little times will I actually, go ahead that I actually physically have a sketch in hand. But I'm always trying to push myself. And with this one was actually planned out. I planned the color scheme, I had the sketch for it, and it was this abandoned spot that one of my homies, Chris, had found. And that day it was a bunch of us just painting. And, my thing is always like, I have to be better than the last piece, or I try to be at least piecing wise, because I'm always trying to push myself and evolve like to bigger, better things.
Sure. You're very diverse. I mean, because we see this in these pieces where your simple styles with characters, make your work accessible, but then you come in super hard with the wild style lettering.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I try to be like all around, an all around writer where I'm able to, rock like simple letters, wherever it's needed. Because, if you think about like, there's actually some writers that see it as like, okay, well, they can actually piece and they'll piece like really, really dope. But then it comes to their simples and they actually kind of suck. Like they're not as strong. And people just think that always is because, oh, it's a simple letter that's easy to do. No, it's not easy to go ahead and rock a simple, letter with style still.
Right. Have you ever had a battle, a direct style battle with somebody?
No, I don't think so, actually.
Have you ever painted with one of your mates and they're like, damn, you're roasting me. I don't want to paint with you?
My boys will never admit to that. The only one that actually, always like kind of says that is actually my fiance, Wonder. And he's always pushing me and supporting me, and he's always like saying like, "Oh, you got me on this one."
But the other thing that I like, and we were talking about this before, which is and again, you have to forgive me if it comes across sideways, is that your style, and there's, again, style has no gender, but your style is so aggressive, it's so imposing, it's definitely not quote unquote girly.
Yeah.
Do you get that often, or is that, I mean, or is that, are you tired of hearing that?
Um, in a way, I kind of wonder to myself, like, what does a girly style mean? Does it mean that I'm supposed to suck? That's every time that somebody even like tells me, that's trying to compliment me by telling me, oh, you're good for a girl. Like, what is that supposed to mean?
Right.
How I mentioned earlier, it was that, graffiti has no style. I mean, no gender, sorry. Graffiti has no gender whatsoever. It does not matter whether you're a girl or a guy. Like, you either get it or you don't, period. So the whole, like, I do understand that, like how you said that it can be aggressive. I get it. And that's one thing that I always tried, that I didn't want my graffiti to look like, with like, and I respect any female that, incorporates like little hearts and flowers and all that, but that's actually never been my style whatsoever.
Okay. So I want to move on because I want to let people know how real you are, because you put it down on the freights as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so you said at first you weren't that interested in them, and then all of a sudden you start hitting them pretty hard. Now going into this environment, the first time you went into a freight train, or when you started going to them, were you afraid? Did you feel at risk?
No, not at all. I mean, all the times that I've ever like even painted freights, like I'm actually, I feel calm about it. I feel it's just a little more chill, and it also goes into where I'm painting them as well. And luckily I've been able, and I've wanted to, I always, try to make it out to like any city that I, fly out to. I'd like to paint freights in their yards or layups, whatever, just to see how it is, and like, like that one right there that you just posted, that one was in Omaha, so
Mhm.
I've been lucky enough to go ahead and, paint different freights like all, throughout the US, which is all different.
One of the things I find interesting about freights is when you paint, because generally they have writing or some messaging on them, and just like this one has, "Do not hammer on car." And here you go smashing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, earlier, I used to not like painting freights, and now I do because it's awesome to see where even the ventures, like where your freight even ends up,
Right.
which I think is an awesome thing.
These freights we're looking at seem like pretty early freights to your early career that you've been
The
through.
top one was, and the one on the side, I think I did like 2 years ago. That one was in Atlanta, and then the bottom one
Yeah,
is in Chicago.
right. Now the other thing is that you don't roll out alone. You roll out with some heavy hitters, Maps and Verse. Let's just start there. Your crew. You keep a tight crew, a good crew around you.
Yeah.
Uh, Tell us why and how does that support system work for you as a writer and personally as a friend?
With 004, aside from it being a crew, it definitely is a family, period. And to me, like all these guys are my brothers, my big brothers for sure. And two of the guys that I do paint, with the most was Meps and Verse. Um, and I wouldn't change them for anything. Like they are the ones that I have the most fun with painting. I know, they have my back, I'll have their back. They know that without a doubt. And Verse, it's me and him are like brother and sister. Like, we're always like even arguing at the spots, like at each other's heads, but it's
Right,
with love.
right. And you've also painted with your fiance Wonder.
Yes.
So you're a husband. You're in that unique class of soon to be husband and wife crew.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work out for you? How does that feel?
It's actually very awesome. He is so supportive. He's always pushing me to be my best, and he's actually the one that will actually push me more to like paint more than ever. I haven't been like really, how do I say, putting in as much work as I used to, and he will always. He's so understanding with everything, and he's always, like I said, rooting me on to even just go paint or anything that I do. It's just like he's like the number one fan.
You're very fortunate. So I want to start shifting gears with you because you apply yourself to different surfaces and mediums, and we're going to go into that space now. And now you're on public space.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering about this. Was this something you inserted into the bus stop, or was it?
Back in Sacramento, we had actually figured out how to get in because we actually had the little key for it. But this one in particular, we stumbled across it because I noticed that it was open. So, I went ahead and we ripped out the poster that's inside, the advertisement, and we actually just, took it back, painted it, and then reinstalled it again and just made sure we locked the thing once again.
So you mentioned Sacramento because you have a bit of a history up in Northern California, rather. Um, what was that like for you when you were painting up there? And you said San Francisco and
Mm-hmm.
Sacramento,
Oakland.
Oakland.
I spent a lot of time in the Bay when I lived in Sacramento, since it's only like an hour and a half away. I would just get on the bus, on the mega bus for like, $2, and, head up to like San Francisco and Oakland to paint. While I was living out in California, I was literally painting every single day. Every day. Like it was like, since the minute I woke up, go paint a piece, and if I had more time, more paint another piece. Oh, nighttime comes, it's time to go bomb, like, and hit the streets.
Who were you writing with up there?
I was out there painting very tough with Skill from UTI. um I would actually stay at his house all the time, sometimes even like a month at a time, where we literally would just paint every single day. Like, and then it was all, the cats from like Oakland, like Steve, for a little bit, Mike, it's just, it was so many people, because out there, like, people like accept you with open arms, and California showed me a lot of love.
Well, you put in the work, and then eventually Evolve gives you your own spray can.
Hmm.
How did that feel to have Miss Red's Rojo?
I never expected that. If you were to ask me, you know, when I first started, if you were to ask me, like, or even tell me, actually, if you were to tell me you're gonna have your own can, like, I would not believe it, whatsoever. I never thought that I would ever see a can with my name on that, and I feel very lucky, um, you know, to be able to say, like, yeah, I have my own color.
Yeah, and the thing is that again, you put in the work, right? From the states you've traveled and the the places you've placed your name. And I happen to like this hit on the Pepsi truck. It is it's such a strong visceral statement, like,
Yeah.
oh, this is not just graffiti. This is anti-advertising and anti-corporation. Was there a direct sentiment, or you were just like, oh, here's another truck?
No, we actually, in that same lot on the other side, we had just finished doing huge stompers, uh font stompers, and that truck was in the lot, so we're like, fuck it, like, this is a dope ass truck, like, we're hitting this shit before anybody else hits it.
Right. So you now this I would imagine was with permission.
Yeah.
This I like this series of vehicles that you've painted, by the way.
Thank you.
And so here we start seeing something very interesting in your oeuvre. You start kind of this branding for yourself, right? We see
Hmm.
the pink flamingo, and that is a recurring thing, which we'll dive into very shortly. But I just want to show, and this I love, and even though that this is a wrap, um, what in the world was this person thinking? What was the ask of you for this car?
um that was actually, for Art Basel. They had wrapped up a few cars. So it was Sobe Wraps, and it was me and a few other writers that were able to go ahead and actually paint on them. So that was pretty cool.
Is that something that you'd be interested in pursuing more often?
Yeah, sure. If the opportunity's there, absolutely.
I happen to like that it feels very situational, like it was just parked there and you just hit it.
Oh God, no, no, it wasn't. It was during an event for Art Basel.
Well, and the next slide is interesting because as I think about this, you have both very overt and subtle branding that runs through your work. Now, these little series of palm trees that are placed in your pieces, um, really they're signifiers, right? They're of, hey, I'm from Miami,
Hmm.
or tell me about the origins of this.
Um, where I really started painting, my little stamp palm tree was once I had moved out to California. And it was basically just paying homage to, just my city where I'm from. Even though I moved away, it never meant that I forgot where I'm from, and I wasn't going to stop repping where I'm from, so it definitely, was just a little stamp where it's like saying, hey, like, this is, like, I love you, Miami, basically. And it's cool that a lot of people have always, like, actually paid attention to it, and even on, like, certain, like, pieces or whatever that I haven't done the palm tree, they'll question me, like, oh, where's the palm tree? you know
Right.
and there's people also that think it's a stencil. It is not.
And so now you're creating brand awareness with this, but also you're creating brand awareness with the flamingo.
Hmm.
And it's the funkiest flamingo I have ever seen. Tell me about the flamingo and the origins of the flamingo.
I paint the flamingo because I'm originally from Hialeah, which is a part of, Dade County. And if you were to look at the Hialeah Park logo, they have a flamingo. So it's just something I relate to the city where I'm from.
You also have been successful at using it for your commercial design work.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we happen to have your towel in the shop. If anybody's interested, we have the Reds some beach towel at the shop. And what I happen to like, again, that you have such a strong sense of design outside of graffiti, and your graphic design is just as exciting and vibrant and approachable. Um, Tell me about this part of your life, about um, crossing into a commercial space.
Um, I at first, okay, it actually goes back to when I was living in California in Sacramento. Um, I never wanted to, I never thought of it going into like commercial wise. And I never even used to paint like canvases or anything, but I saw myself in a tough situation where, I didn't have money, like I was broke as fuck, living out in California. And people would always ask me like, oh, do you have any canvases for sale? Oh, do you do any custom pieces? Like, da da da, like, no, no, no. And until I saw myself in that jam, that I'm like, shit, like, what do I do? I started making little canvases, and then it actually started like elevating, like little by little, like, well, what's next? Like, what can I do? And throughout the years, like, I've always tried to push myself. I didn't only want to like, uh, you know, print out T-shirts, because that was another thing. People would ask me, hey, do you have any shirts, any merchandise? You know, hmm
No, you're on a good roll about this, because the next thing for you is like you accept, you get more ambitious because you get this commission to do a public space.
right. Right. And it's been little by little, like even though where I basically began is graffiti, I've seen what I can, what I've been able to like evolve it into, and I know that like graffiti isn't for everybody, and I get it. So with incorporating like actually making my own little characters, it makes it more fun, family like oriented, I guess, and just a little more friendlier, where I'm able to like, okay, well, there's an opportunity to paint a wall. Oh, but they don't want letters. They don't want graffiti. Well, guess what? Here, do you want my flamingo on there? Do you want like, cool background colors? Like, you can't, to me, it's like I couldn't stay just like doing letters, and it's, throughout the years is what I've been learning little by little, like even going back to like the merchandise stuff, I didn't just want to go ahead and like stop at, only making T-shirts. Like, what else can I cater? Like, what else can I make that I know that other writers, obviously thinking as a writer, like, what else can they enjoy? But I also think in a sense, it's like, okay, what's relatable to a writer, but then what's also relatable to the everyday kind of person.
Right. You want to make yourself accessible as an artist, for sure. And that's maturity, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to take a moment to welcome everybody who's just joining us. We're having our daily artist talk with the one and only Reds from 004 Miami. And one of the things that's really interesting to me is this next part that we're going to get into, right? Your characters and what they symbolize, and the power behind the imagery that you are, employing about women, right? And it's shameless, it's beautiful, it's powerful, it's everyday, and you illustrate these very robust, bodacious women who are very confident. And tell me about this type of work that you've been focusing on.
They're my little plumpy and grumpy girls, and it's not just like, because a lot of people say that it's me and as the character. No, it's, I do these characters, based off like, trends that I like, and just relatable to like other females that, being chunky, having your little rolls in your tummy is okay. Like, I'm tired of always seeing, your regular, like every time, there's like a painting of a woman, or something like on a, mural, it's always like, oh, like a beautiful, like what is perfect, you know, type of girl, and I'm just tired of that. You know, it's I want to go ahead and say like it's okay, like it's okay. This is your regular type of girl, like, and I can relate to you.
Um, is this my regular type of girl who's running from the cops with a sack full of who knows what?
To
But
me,
but, but
yeah.
yeah, I love it. I love it. But you're right, you know, because there has to be something really important about sending these healthy messages out to young women who get body shamed and image shamed. And these characters are very powerful to me.
Yeah, it's like I say, you know, my message that I try to like, you know, send out with, you know, painting my little chunky girls, it's just, you know, we're out here too, and we're still beautiful, you know.
Yeah,
You don't need to, you know, relate or try to be like, you know, like the models in a magazine, you know. You don't need to starve yourself. You're still beautiful with your little tummy. Like it's all good.
right. I love your patron saint of graffiti here.
Thank you.
And again, one of the things that I have to let people know is that you have also invested yourself in your brand and also making it available and accessible to people because you develop product, right?
Hmm.
And how do we get this product? I know we have some at the museum, but I'm sure you have other ways of getting it.
Yeah, I currently have my website, which is one spelled out, .com. And, you know, I'm always uploading, like, you know, it all depends. Like, you know, I've had scribes, you know, on there. I've had pillows, you know, merchandise, like, you know, just, and stickers, shirts, like, just so many things. And it's always changing, and I'm currently working is on like a different brand, which is Vandalize, which, you know, it's something that I was supposed to release, you know, a little bit ago, but, you know, things have been kind of weird. So, you know, we're putting that off, but it's something I'm still working on. And, you know, as you have the chocolates up, that's still, like I said, it's evolving, like thinking, you know, getting those gears
Yeah,
going.
I'm hoping you do these. I was just gonna say this product
Yeah.
would be so cool to have
What I
chocolate throw
actually
up.
do those for, because I don't, you know, I don't want to mail those out, since I don't know how they will, you know, if they'll melt or something, you know, mailing them out. But what I actually make those available is, um, anytime that I have like a table, you know, with merch, like at an event or something, it's usually a free item that I give to anyone that purchases like anything from me.
It would be interesting if they were CBD infused.
Oof, I'd love that.
So yeah, so you are I like that you have a healthy attitude about doing commercial works, commercial projects, and again, you know, one of the things we see here, you went ahead and did your slaps and your pins.
I did the slaps like that so people can also write. You get me? So it's like, it's kind of like in a way like, hey, we're both getting up. Like,
Now, I want to talk to you about the Russian dolls because this is a really cool series. Tell me about the origin of the Russian dolls, and not just the you know, using this as your canvas, but the figures and characters you paint on them. You, by the way, you hand paint them.
yes. It was actually Allison's idea, um, to get me to paint the little Russian dolls, and I thought that was awesome. You know, like you know, she threw the idea at me. She's like, "Well, what do you think? Like, would you be down?" I'm like, "Yeah, actually, like that's pretty dope." Like, I've actually always loved these nesting dolls. You know, so I jumped right on it, and, you know, didn't even hesitate to, you know, at all. And it was definitely a fun project, you know, which I actually am working on a few more sets because they did so well.
So this particular character, the bolt cutter,
Hmm.
is an actual character you're developing, or is that
Hmm.
something? Oh, it is. Okay.
He's actually, well, actually no, the flamingo's my oldest character, but he's actually been around, like, you know, I've been painting him for quite some time, like for some years now, actually.
I also like these. Again, it goes to the figure of the woman, the bodacious woman.
Yes.
And Allison's letting us know that they sell out. Yes, it's true. They do sell out very, very quick.
Yep.
Um, and again, I just want to remind people that you are doing these commercial works. They're available on your site and over at the museum as well.
Museum.
We have the towel and we have pins. And I want to encourage people, to support you. This is the most important time to be supporting each other in one form or another with small works and or support, verbal support and, some kind of encouragement, because we are in really interesting times that we have. How are you coping with these changes now in your creative space with the coronavirus lockdown?
Whew. Well, I thought I would have been like creating like back to back during this time, but I haven't. I haven't really felt like really, really, creative whatsoever. Like yeah, I'll grab my iPad and, do somebody's name or, whatever. And then, not so long ago, I got to paint, that backyard as well. But a lot of my jobs got canceled, and I guess that really kind of like brought me down a bit. I'm just not actually producing as much as I would want to. But I'm sure, like this is how it happens anyways, like this with me. Like I'll, have my low and then all of a sudden, like I'll get an idea, work on that, and then that's it. It's like back to back to back to back, like nonstop.
Sure. I mean, this is an incubation period, isn't it? Because you're talking about Vandalize and other projects. And I was talking to Wonder about you, and you guys are, as a team, are really thinking this through as to how to get to that next level during this period.
Right.
I mean, you've been busy. I mean, one of the things that I am so proud of is that you did this phenomenal mural for us at the museum. You were commissioned to do a mural in Wynwood, and interestingly enough, I came across this drawing that I got to you, and this alone is so outstanding, right?
Thank you.
Was this before the mural concept or with the mural concept?
It was actually right before the mural concept, like, and not even too far from it. It was right before it, and when you guys reached out to me, asking me if I would be interested in doing that mural. The first thing, like the idea literally was like, I already have it. Like it just popped in my head instantly. It wasn't even something that I had to like kind of like think and like, oh no, I knew instantly that I wanted to do was that postcard, like the postcard idea.
Yeah.
And I still wanted to keep it graffiti, but still something that can cater to like the tourists that even come to Miami, and even for the ones that like live out here, but I knew instantly, I'm like, and I already know what piece I want to use for that, because I had just finished doing that piece on the iPad.
It's extraordinary, and it really lights up the community. And again, one of the things that I get really excited about is the style writing part of it. As it's just so imposing. It's so big. It's so bold, and that alone would have been impressive. But then you just went off and illustrated this amazing composition with the Wynwood greeting and the flamingo, and it's great. One of the things that I actually remember when you were out there and Lady Pink was out there as well, to see both of you. And I sincerely mean this, is in all my years in this culture and knowing Pink for such a long time, and I don't know if she's had an influence on you or not, but I also know that it's amazing that you have carried on a tradition, particularly as a female writer, right? And alongside such an iconic person, in this culture, and it shows how far we've come, and it's still, pushing the boundaries of what this art can be, outside of gender, of course, but that you both were a much needed representation in Wynwood.
Yeah, that was actually super awesome. To be able to meet her, like, yeah, you know, she's someone I've definitely looked up to. You know, and aside for being, you know, like a woman that has put in work, you know, and to just have met her and be able to like tell her, hey, you know, like it's an honor, you know, and she actually like returned the comment back to me. She's like, no, it's an honor to paint next to you. Like, she's like, this is beautiful. And I'm like, shit, like I never thought that I would be able to hear that, you know. It was just a really, really dope moment, you know, and I'm glad that I got to meet her and
So
even have a mural next to her. So
yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I enjoy seeing you both side by side. I want to open this up to questions from our audience, and so feel free to ask Reds a question. Just be respectful. That's all I ask. Um, so, well, you know, I'll start asking you. Is there a writer that you would like to paint with that you haven't? Is there somebody out there that you admire that you would want to paint with, male or female?
um I would actually love to, you know, if I got the chance to paint with Bates. Um,
I
I
could see that.
think, yeah, I would absolutely like, you know, it's someone that calls my attention. You know, I think he's such a great, great, great writer. You know, so maybe one day.
Yeah, I could see the reason why. I think in terms of you know, the painting style, the big you know, big bold lettering. Uh, Bella Makina asks, how do you remain so strong in such a male-dominated scene?
Just having really tough skin. You know, you cannot let these guys get, you know, get to you
Yeah,
whatsoever. You know, if anything, you know, listen to their words, but let that be something that it's like pushes you to
yeah.
want to be better and prove, you know, prove them wrong, basically.
Graffiti Beijing asks, how important is the New York subway history to you as someone from Miami?
Um, okay, how can I say? I don't know how important. It's just something that I've admired, you know, and I've looked at. And I think it's like, you know, super dope. Super, super, super dope, um, you know, how there was like such a big scene back in the day, like how, you know, they were painting like whole cars, you know, and it was like back to back to back. So it's like I wish I actually lived during that era in New York to be able to have seen that.
Inokwan asks, what advice would you give a beginner writer 2 months?
Just keep at it, you know, keep practicing. You know, and it is about practicing. Don't think that you're better than everybody else. Don't be the smart ass. Like, you know, just be humble. You know, look up to the writers that you look up to, like study their letters, study their colors and all that. I'm not saying to bite, but you know, just be
Why do you say
influenced.
that? Why do you, I'm a big fan of biting. I am. I am. Because, you know, I mean, I'm not a fan of overt biting, right? Like copycatting.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of learning from each other. And I think that's
Yeah,
part of what this culture is, and that we take from each other and add to it and build on top of it. Uh,
absolutely. It,
I one of the things that I mean, I've been looking at your work for the past week or so, and let me tell you something. I've been digesting so much data and information creatively. I don't know how it's going to come out. There are things that I'm like, "Ooh, I like that. I'm going to rock that." You
mm,
know, I'm admittedly, openly saying that without shame. But I think overt biting is an issue. But I
yeah.
do think that we must um, kind of have an attitude that perhaps is a little bit more democratic about this culture, in that we are doing art that gets inherited generationally,
Hmm.
right? So that's just my 2 cents on that. I got another question for you from, uh, oh, this is a good one actually, from Slow Motion. How important is tat culture to you, and would you ever consider picking up ink?
Um, I love tattoos. I'm covered in them. I did try apprenticing for a little bit. And the only reason why I didn't push through with it, because during literally the same exact time, I got hit up to do a solo show in Boston. And this is actually when I was living in Sacramento. Because I used to work at a tattoo shop as the front girl, and I would just spend my day just, drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing. And, the artist saw like how I would just draw all day and saw how easy it was to me. So they're like, you know what, like, have you ever thought about taking on tattooing? And I went ahead, and I started, and they were just so surprised at even the first tattoo that I did, which was my hand style. And they chose it. I did it, and they were waiting to talk so much shit about, like, the tattooing, and it apparently came out so clean that they're like, dude, we can't even fucking talk shit on this. So so after that, I did rock a few small tattoos, but maybe one day I'll actually pick it up again, and who knows.
So Burn6 asks, who's your favorite lady writer?
There's just so many. Definitely, I will say I have two top, and one is Claw, because just, she's also someone that I've looked up to as far as a woman, because she is a strong woman, and I stand for a lot, like nearly almost everything, I will say, like, that she stands for, and I think she's hilarious. And I got the chance to actually paint with her this year, which was also like one of my favorite moments, to get to paint with her and just spend that time with her, just chit-chatting and laughing,
Mm-hmm.
And then my second one is Kesra, that she's out in Seattle, and I'm lucky to call her like, one of my best friends.
Super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Still on Track asks, have you painted clean trains?
I've tried. The few times, like, it's been a handful of times that we've actually planned and have gone and all that, it just did not fucking work out. Like, after just, checking out the spot and all that, like, it just did not work out. And these are spots already that, like, my homies, had painted already, and it hasn't worked out for me yet, but I'm not saying no, in the future, who knows? I'll maybe, finally catch one.
Another question coming in. How influential was your time? This is from Spend One, forgive me. How influential was your time in California to your style?
Very, very, very influential. I think still, like, my style now carries a bit of like the California, styles. For a while, my hand style was very like California-ish, and I love California graffiti, whether it's the Bay or LA, like, because there is differences, it's not just like you just say California. No.
Do you have a preference, northern or southern?
As far as style, I will say southern, but where I spent like the most time painting and having the most fun was actually in the Bay in Northern California.
I happen to like Southern California style myself. You get another question coming in from ATTN Disorders. How much illegal graffiti do you do? I don't know if she's going to really want to answer that.
Illegal or legal?
Illegal.
It's like I try to balance it out. A lot of people for a while was like, oh, well, all she does is legal work. No. I balance it out, for a very long time. It was every single night, it was me and Verse just fucking going ham. Like every night we were catching a spot. And this is not just like, oh, doing a throw up. No, we were doing our stompers. And for those that don't know what a stomper is, it's basically as high as I can reach, or, you can reach, just, smacking the side of like a whole entire building. Basically, like, we're basically being greedy. Like, this is our wall, this is our spot, like no one else is gonna get up. Like,
I love your candor, my dear. You gangster. Tech Mental asks, is there another city in the world that you have not painted in that would be your graph goal?
Portland, Oregon. Well, as far as in the States.
In the States.
As far as the country, I am dying to go to Australia.
Australia, I hope you're listening. Bring her over.
And actually, one of the first magazines I ever got interviewed for, like that I was featured in, was an Australian magazine.
Which one was that?
It was called COP. I forgot what it was, like chicks on something. I can't remember. But yeah, it was an Australian-based magazine.
Wow, what a tremendous, tremendous story. Folks, if you're joining us late, we're talking with the one and only Reds 004 from Miami. And we've been talking about her history as a writer and her career as a graphic designer and artist. And so we're going to be winding this down. So I want to see if anybody has another question for you. Oh, someone's at Dade County Choppers is asking what's one of your funniest chases?
Let's see. Well, it's more like a funny story. And it's actually with him and Meps. As a matter of fact, we were doing a rooftop. And the thing is, like, I suck at climbing. Like, oh, you know what? Actually, never mind. Here's the chase story that I know he wants to hear.
All right. You got 2 minutes to tell it.
Okay, really quick. So I wanted to do this one spot. All right, we go. All right, cool. So we're painting the spot, and I feel that there's a car just behind us that stopped. I looked, and I'm like, yo. I looked at Verse, and I'm like, yo, that car's just been there. And I'm like, run. So we start hauling ass, and I suck at climbing, like I said. So there's this huge fence. It's not like your regular little fence. And he literally, like, Meps is like a spider monkey. Like, he will climb whatever. He climbs over. So then I'm trying to get over the fence. Verse literally just throws me. He threw me over the fence.
He's a big guy, too.
Yes. He throws me over the fence. I end up like I get caught up on the fence. It rips my shirt. It gashes my stomach. I end up landing on Meps because Verse is like, Meps, catch. So I land on Meps. So then it's his turn to get over the fence. It's a very tall fence. He ends up throwing himself over the fence, and he's like, Meps, catch. Lands on Meps. We still have to haul ass across this lot, right? It's another fence there. And this is like one of those spear, fences. There he goes, just throwing me over once again, like a rag doll. And we're just like hauling ass the entire time. And yeah, we never got to finish the spot.
Thank you for sharing that. As we're going to wind this down on time, man. And Reds, I so appreciate you, your journey, your art, and your support at the Museum of Graffiti. I hope our fans tonight really got to see you in a very different light, in a full light, in personality, and in your